The first thing I noticed when she walked in wasn't her hair, her dress, or even the faint trace of cologne that didn't belong to me. It was the lighting. The hallway motion sensor didn't trip, which meant she didn't come in through the front door. She used the garage. Again, that's the one I told her last month wasn't syncing with the new camera system. She must have remembered. So while she set her purse down like nothing had happened, kicked off her heels like the floor owed her comfort, and opened the fridge like it was any other Tuesday night, I sat there, on the living room couch, heart pounding, staring at her like I was seeing a stranger wear my wife's skin. Long night? I asked, trying to sound neutral. Harmless. Stupid. She didn't even flinch. MHM. That client dinner ran long. Liam wouldn't stop talking. Liam. That name again. She closed the fridge, pulled out some sparkling water, and gave me a tight-lipped smile like she'd just finished a dental cleaning. Her eyes didn't meet mine for more than half a second. That's when I did it. I didn't yell, didn't accuse. Just opened the voice memo app on my phone and pressed play. It was only 12 seconds long. Just enough to hear her voice, breathy, laughing, and then, clear as crystal, whispering, "You're such a bad influence. If my husband knew I was here." She dropped the bottle. It shattered. So did her face. She looked at me like the floor was about to open up and swallow her whole. Like her brain couldn't decide whether to run, cry, or lie harder. But I didn't say a word. I just stared. And the silence? It did more damage than any fight ever could. There was this weird 10 seconds of nothing. Like time folded in on itself. The audio clip had finished, my phone screen had gone dark, and she was still frozen, eyes locked on the floor, hands slightly raised like she didn't know whether to explain or deny or just vanish. The bottle she dropped was leaking fizzy water across the tiles, but she didn't even look at it. And me? I just sat there, sinking deeper into the couch cushions, like if I held still enough, maybe I wouldn't feel like my organs were being rearranged inside my chest. She finally spoke, but it was too late. The pause between the lie and the response was already evidence. "Curtis, I don't know what that was, but..." And there it was. The voice. That calm, slow, overly reasonable tone women use when they think you're about to overreact. Like I'm some fragile little porcelain husband who can't handle reality without breaking into pieces. And maybe I am. Maybe that's the worst part. I knew I was weak, but I still prayed she'd never test how weak. I stood up. Not dramatically. Just stood. She flinched like I'd raised my hand, which I'd never done in my life. Never even raised my voice. That's not who I am. That's not who we were. Or maybe that's not who I thought we were. I stepped over the shattered glass, walked past her, and stopped at the kitchen counter. Reached for the drawer. She tensed again, but all I pulled out was the envelope. The one I had prepped 4 days ago when I started putting 2 and 2 together. Inside were 4 photos. Not grainy, not suspicious. Just clear, sharp, undeniable. Her, in a wine bar. Not with her boss. Not with a client. With him. A guy in a dark blazer, no wedding ring, leaning in too close. Her hand on his knee. His hand on her back. Smiles that weren't polite. Smiles that came after secrets. I didn't hire a PI. I took the photos myself. I followed her. Because I had to know. And knowing hurt more than wondering ever did. I placed the envelope on the counter and slid it toward her. Didn't say a word. Just watched her fingers tremble as she opened it, pulled out the first photo, and stopped breathing. Her eyes filled fast, like she wanted to cry but didn't know if she was allowed to, or if she had to ask for permission to feel shame. Then, for the first time in months, she looked directly at me. And in that moment, her mouth stayed shut, but her eyes told the truth. She had been lying. About everything. But what crushed me wasn't the cheating. It was the fact that she didn't even bother to hide it well. As if I wasn't worth the effort. She reached for me. After everything, after the recording, the photos, the lies, she reached for me like a hug would undo it all. Like wrapping her arms around my chest would erase the weight of what she'd done. I didn't move. I just stood there, letting her hands hover near my shoulders until she gave up. And then she tried the next tactic. Words. "Curtis, I was going to tell you. I was. It just got complicated." Complicated. I swear to God. If one more person in this world uses that word to excuse betraying someone who trusted them, I might just lose it. But of course I didn't say that. I just stared at her like a broken Roomba, trying to process an error code. She kept talking, voice trembling now, like she was the victim. Like she was the one being ambushed. It's not serious, she said, like that made it better. It's been hard lately. Between us. You're always so distant, and I didn't know how to. There it was. Blame me. I saw it coming, but it still hit like a brick to the chest. Somehow, I hadn't been affectionate enough, hadn't been present enough, hadn't read her mind when she was unhappy. And instead of saying something, instead of trying, she whispered secrets into someone else's neck at midnight while I was home folding laundry and deleting spam emails. Yeah, totally fair trade. But then she said something that made my jaw clench. I didn't sleep with him. It was immediate. No hesitation. Just a flat, rehearsed lie. And it was a lie. I knew it. Not because I had proof, though that was coming, but because of how she said it. There was no hurt in her denial. No offense. No shock that I'd even think such a thing. She expected the accusation and had her line ready like it was part of a script. I finally spoke. His name? She blinked. What? His name? There was a pause, and then she gave it, like it was just another item on a grocery list. Tyler. I didn't know a Tyler. She'd never mentioned a Tyler. But I knew the name wasn't the important part. What mattered was how easily she gave it. Like the lie had reached its expiration date, and she was bored of carrying it. And still I stayed calm, which seemed to scare her more than yelling ever would. I think she expected me to scream, to throw something, to make it dramatic. But all I did was turn, walk down the hallway, and open the drawer in my desk. I pulled out the flash drive. Black. Unmarked. Still warm from when I'd been checking it earlier that night. I handed it to her without a word. She stared at it, confused. It's from the hallway speaker, I said. I didn't mean to record anything, but it caught the call you made before you left. Her fingers trembled as she took it. Then she asked the stupidest question of all. Have you listened to it? I laughed. A dry, brittle sound I didn't recognize as my own. What do you think? She didn't speak after that. Just held the flash drive like it might burn through her skin. And I walked out of the room. Because if I stayed any longer, I might have begged her to love me again. And that would have been more pathetic than anything she'd done. That night, I didn't sleep in our bedroom. I didn't sleep at all. I lay on the old beige couch in my home office, the one we always said we'd replace, but never did, listening to the rain ticking against the window like it was trying to say something I wasn't ready to hear. I had the overhead light off, but the hallway motion sensor flicked on a few times, meaning she was still awake. Moving around. Probably pacing. Probably panicking. She didn't come in to check on me, though. Not once. Not even to say goodnight. I kept staring at the little red light on the USB backup drive plugged into my laptop. That tiny blinking had become more honest than my wife. It contained every second of her voice before she thought anyone was listening. And I didn't even need to open the file again. I remembered every breath, every giggle, every disgusting, flirty whisper she made before heading off to cheat and call it dinner. I kept thinking, why me? What was it about me that made her choose someone else? Was I boring? Predictable? Too easy? Did I make her feel safe to the point where she needed danger just to feel alive again? I racked my brain trying to remember the last time she touched me like she meant it. The last time she looked at me without that guarded politeness. And the truth was, it had been months. Maybe even longer. And I'd missed it. No, I'd ignored it. But that night, I stopped pretending. Around 5:30 a.m., when the sky turned that dead gray blue before sunrise, I opened my email and started sending files. To myself. To a cloud backup. To a friend of mine who works in legal consulting. I labeled them boring things. Tax_docs_2023, insurance_audit, joint assets_review. Things she wouldn't notice if she snooped. I wasn't doing anything illegal. Not sabotaging. Just documenting. Quietly. Thoroughly. Carefully. Like I was building a lifeboat and pretending I wasn't already drowning. By the time Meredith came downstairs, hair still damp from the shower, mascara faint under her eyes like she hadn't slept either, I was already dressed. She paused in the doorway like she didn't know if she was allowed to speak. She looked at me with this fragile, fake version of sadness. The kind people wear when they're sorry they got caught, not sorry for what they did. Can we talk? She asked softly. I didn't answer. Just grabbed my keys. Curtis, please. Still nothing. I walked right past her and out the door. Not because I had somewhere to be, but because I couldn't stand being in that house for one more breath with her in it. I drove. For hours. Nowhere in particular. Just away. I watched the clouds roll in over the highway and thought about how I used to love stormy mornings like this. How Meredith and I used to drink coffee on the porch and watch the rain together. But now every memory felt staged. Like I'd been living in a well-decorated lie. I parked near an old park we used to walk through before we got married. I sat on a bench and checked her social media, not obsessively, just out of curiosity. I expected to see the usual boring posts about wellness, client events, or brunch. But what I didn't expect was a photo that someone else tagged her in 3 weeks ago. A group photo. Nothing overt. But there he was, Tyler. Same guy from the wine bar. He wasn't standing next to her, but his eyes? They were locked on her. Everyone else was looking at the camera, smiling. But he was looking at her like he already owned her. And in that moment, it all clicked. This wasn't new. This wasn't recent. This had been happening for a long, long time. Later that same day, I got a message from her best friend, Becca. It came out of nowhere. I hadn't spoken to Becca one-on-one in over a year. We were never particularly close. She was always Meredith's fun friend, the chaotic one who got too drunk at weddings and overshared at brunch. I figured she was just checking in after hearing we were going through something. But her text was strange. I didn't know it went that far. She promised me it was only once. I'm sorry, Curtis. You didn't deserve that. Only once. I stared at that message like it was written in another language. Becca had known. She had known and said nothing. Which meant it wasn't just the affair. It was the secrecy everyone else agreed to uphold while I walked around like the dumbest man in the room, smiling through dinner parties and sharing wine with Meredith's little circle of traitors. I texted back, asking what she meant. 3 dots. Then nothing. I called. She declined. Then, 5 minutes later, I got another message. Forget I said anything. I shouldn't have gotten involved. Please don't tell her I reached out. My stomach turned. She knew more. She was scared. Not just of Meredith, but of what might happen if the whole truth came out. That's when I realized this wasn't just about Tyler. This wasn't some random side fling. This had layers. Lies stacked on lies. And I'd only scratched the surface. I took a screenshot of the texts. Saved it. And that's when I made a decision. No more silence. No more pretending. The next move was mine. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. Just the thought of hearing her voice, seeing her sit on our couch like it wasn't soaked in betrayal, it made my skin crawl. Instead, I booked a last-minute room at a cheap roadside hotel with flickering lights and a heater that rattled like it had a smoker's cough. I didn't sleep. I just lay there with my jacket still on, staring at the ceiling and letting everything rot in my head. Becca's messages, the wine bar, the damn USB recording, it was all swirling into something ugly. And the worst part was, I still didn't have the full picture. Around 2 a.m., I gave in and checked Meredith's tablet. The one she forgot was still synced to our shared cloud before she got that new phone. I hadn't touched it in months. My thumbprint still worked. I wish it hadn't. Within 3 minutes of opening her gallery, I found an album called Miscellaneous. Innocent name. Probably meant to be overlooked. It was filled with photos, some from work events, some of her coffee runs, and then, there they were. 24 photos of her and Tyler. In his car. At his apartment. In a dressing room mirror. Some were just selfies with his arm around her waist. Others had captions. My bad habit. No regrets. And the worst one, he'll never find out. My stomach felt hollow. Like it was folding in on itself. These weren't mistakes. They weren't slips or moments of weakness. She wasn't torn. She was proud. Confident. She thought she was untouchable. The next morning, I went back to the house. I didn't want to see her. I just needed a few documents from the safe and the old hard drive I kept buried behind the filing cabinet. I had barely stepped into the living room when I noticed her laptop open on the table. Something was pulled up on the screen. A draft email. To Tyler. It read, Curtis didn't say anything last night. I think he suspects, but he's too passive to do anything. If things go south, we'll say it was already ending. Keep our stories straight. I stared at it. She hadn't sent it yet, but she was ready. So that's what she really thought of me. Too passive? Too harmless to fight back? That I'd just shrink into the background while she rewrote our marriage as some loveless arrangement she had no choice but to escape? I didn't delete the draft. I didn't reply. I screenshotted it. Then I shut her laptop without a sound and walked straight to the bedroom closet, the one with the shoebox she never knew I found 3 years ago. Inside was a small velvet pouch with our emergency credit card and the fake name she used for booking surprise vacations. It was how she surprised me with a trip to Seattle once. I thought it was romantic. Now I realized it had been practice. Practice for disappearing. I took the card, left everything else. And before I stepped outside, I glanced back at the couch where she'd kissed me last week and called me her calm place. And suddenly, all I wanted was to disappear first. I didn't say a word to her for 2 full days. Not a text, not a note, not even a glance. I stayed out, booked a different hotel each night, paid cash when I could, used that emergency card only once to buy a prepaid phone and a single bus ticket. Not for me, for later, for her. I spent most of my time driving, circling the city, revisiting places that had once meant something. The place we first said, "I love you." The tiny Thai place where she spilled wine on her dress and laughed like a teenager. Every single memory had a layer of rot now. Like mold had been hiding just under the surface this whole time, and I was finally seeing it in daylight. When I finally came back home, I didn't knock. I still had keys. She was in the kitchen, like she'd been rehearsing it. Hair down, hoodie on, no makeup, like she thought dressing down made her look softer, smaller, forgivable. The act might have worked once. Not now. She looked up from her tea and blinked like she wasn't sure if I was real. And still, I didn't say anything. I just placed a single manila envelope on the counter and sat on the opposite stool, arms folded, heart beating so loud I could barely hear my own breath. She opened it slowly, like she already knew what was inside. And she did. The photos, the printed messages, the email draft to Tyler, a copy of Becca's text, even the receipt from the wine bar, stained at the edge but still readable. She didn't speak for a long time. Her fingers just hovered over the evidence, flipping page after page like she was flipping through her own autopsy. When she finally looked up, her mouth opened, but no words came out. Just this soft, helpless whimper, like she was searching for a script and forgot her lines. Then she whispered, "You're not even yelling." I stared right at her. Why would I yell? You already decided I wasn't worth the truth. That's when she broke. Not because of guilt, not because she was sorry, but because she realized I wasn't fighting for her anymore. I wasn't trying, and that scared her more than anything else. She cried like a child, loud, ugly sobs that bounced off the tile. And I just watched. Not to be cruel. I just didn't have anything left to give. She kept asking questions between the crying. Do you hate me? Are you leaving me? Can we fix this? Is it over? But I didn't answer, because none of those questions were about what she had done. They were about how I would clean it up. Like I was supposed to grab a mop and make it all okay again. And then she said it. The one line I'll never forget. I didn't think you'd find out. That was her confession. Not I'm sorry. Not I messed up. Just that. I didn't think you'd find out. That's how little she thought of me. Of us. Of the life I'd built brick by brick while she carved an escape tunnel underneath it. So I stood up, walked to the door, and dropped one last thing on the table. The bus ticket. It was for a city she hated, one she always complained was too gray, too small, too cold. I figured that made it perfect. She looked at it, confused. I don't care where you go, I said. But go. And don't make me be the one to carry the pieces you broke. Then I left her sitting there, not because I was strong, but because I was finally done being the quiet one she could lie around. The strange thing is, after everything, after the photos, the lies, the late-night calls I wasn't supposed to hear, what finally gave me peace wasn't punishing her. It wasn't some big confrontation or viral moment of karma. It was walking out the front door and realizing that for the first time in years, I didn't owe anyone an explanation. She didn't use the bus ticket. Of course she didn't. I knew she wouldn't. She stayed in the house a few more days while I crashed at a friend's place, then moved in with her sister across town. I heard later that Tyler disappeared the second things got real. She lost both of us in the same week. The difference was I rebuilt. Quietly. Carefully. On my own terms. I filed the papers without drama. I didn't ask for anything more than what was fair. I didn't drag her name through the mud, didn't make threats, didn't even block her. I let her watch, in silence, as I started to put my life back together without her. That was all the closure I needed. 3 months later, I launched the small consulting business I'd been dreaming about for years, but never had the energy to pursue. Turns out, cutting dead weight gives you room to move again. Clients came in slowly at first, but then steadily. I found focus, routine, even joy. I remembered what it felt like to wake up without walking on eggshells. And then, 6 months to the day after she first lied about that client dinner, I met someone. Her name's Elise. She's not flashy or dramatic. She talks with her hands and leaves sticky notes on my dashboard when I'm having a bad week. She asks questions and actually waits for the answers. I haven't told her everything yet. I don't need to. She knows I've been hurt. But she treats that pain like something to respect, not something to compete with. Last week, Meredith messaged me. A short, shaky paragraph about how she never realized what she had and hopes I'm okay. I didn't respond. Not because I'm angry, but because I'm finally free. She lost a man who would have done anything for her. I lost someone who wouldn't have crossed the street for me unless someone else was watching. And now, I'm okay. Better, even. Sometimes healing doesn't come in loud victories. Sometimes it's the quiet strength of walking away and never needing to turn around.